Hey everybody, this is Noe with Walk with Yah Ministry, a ministry that focuses on deliverance or exorcisms, spiritual warfare, and also biblical application with a slight bent towards things in the spirit realm, just to give some understanding. And so just doing a Q&A session for those questions that I get or sometimes that I see are just posed online in online forums. And in this case, the question is, what does the Bible have to say about reincarnation? As I see this question being asked a lot. And in some ways, I can understand this question because a lot of times the Bible will say things that we don't quite understand. And so in our own knowledge and our own, plus with the enemy's help, things get twisted. And we may not necessarily believe the Bible, but we have to know that the Bible's true. Whether we understand it or not, we need to follow it, and then we may get revelation later. But in this case, you've probably heard stories where people have said, hey, I've had this dream or this vision, and it was another time, it was, another experience, and I believe it was me being reincarnated. That's one example. I will just say first off, if we look to the Bible for our source, our primary source, in Hebrews 9:27, the Bible says, and it awaits men to die once, and after this, judgment. So we're only destined to die once. Yes, we may live again in the spirit realm, and I might do another question on that soon, but we only come to earth one time. So I want to give some other verses that kind of talk about that, because I think I understand kind of what's going on here and how it's gotten confused, how we've confused it, how the enemies try to confuse it to cause us not to believe the Bible. In Isaiah 61:1, the Bible talks about, in a reference to Yeshua binding up the brokenhearted. In the Hebrew, broken literally means shattered. So in other words, our hearts can get and do get shattered all the time. They kind of get broken into different pieces. And just like there is biological DNA, where there's a piece of you in a cell somewhere in your body, everywhere in your body, that has a copy of you. It's all, your memories, characteristics, physical qualities, etc. There is a similar component in the spiritual realm. I just call it spiritual DNA. And so what happens a lot of times is that we can actually get, and others get put into each other. So parts of us get put into other people, and other people kind of get put into us. And this happens through various mechanisms. And this is what kind of makes, I find deliverance very interesting. This topic alone is just so vastly deep. But I just want to hit it really quick. If we look at the Bible, and if we try to look at it a little bit differently, in Leviticus 17:11, it says, for the life of the flesh is in the blood. And re-emphasized again in verse 14. A lot of times we just read that and we just gloss over it. We're like, okay, yeah, that's nice. But there's a lot being said there. And then also, and I'm not going to go over all these verses in depth. I have some other teachings that I'll post, that I'll reference in this teaching, where I've done teachings previously on soul fragments that will be a lot more in depth than this one. But also in Psalm 7:2, in talking about our enemies, it says, lest they tear at my throat like a lion, rending in pieces with no one to deliver. And some of the verses will say, some of the Bibles will say, they may tear at my soul like a lion. So in other words, the enemy is trying to rip our soul apart into pieces. Matthew 3:24 talks about a house being divided, that house is unable to stand. I'm going to go ahead and tell you that demons kind of see us as houses. They kind of see us, they try to inhabit us. I've had many demons say that they'll come in, through the front door, or they'll come in through the door, and that's just how they reference us. So if they can divide us against ourselves, well, then we have a hard time standing. And so, and I'll also say the reason that the enemy wants to split us, to fragment us, as I'll call it, soul fragmentation, there's various different forms of that, is because in John 17, Yeshua was talking to the disciples, and he says, I am one with the Father, and I want you disciples to be one with us. Not that we become God, but in other words, he wants us to be whole. That's kind of how I'm referencing that here. He wants us to be whole. So what would be the job of the enemy? To fragment us, to rip at our souls, to tear us apart. And so why? So that our house would not stand. So basically, we wouldn't know who we are. So that we have so much spiritual DNA and parts and pieces of other people in us that we're hearing all different types of voices in our head, and we don't understand. And if we don't question those voices, we think it's us a lot of times. Those dreams that we're having sometimes can be a soul fragment, a generational altar, a soul tie, another person's spiritual DNA within us. And so I believe that's kind of what's going on. Again, I have much more to say on this regarding this teaching. I'm just hitting it really quickly here. And lastly, I'll just say in Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in Yahweh with all your heart and lean not upon your own understanding. Jumping to verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear Yahweh and turn away from evil. So sometimes we read the Bible, and again, we don't understand it, but we need for him to give us revelation. We have to understand that his Torah, his Bible, is true not only in the earthly realm, but also in the spirit realms, although applied differently. And so there's many things that we may think we understand, and really, we don't have a clue about. So that's it for this week. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Obviously, I don't know everything, but based on my experience of the Bible and reading the Bible, with a little bit of a spiritual bent to it, understanding, I will do my best to try to help and help you overcome whatever it is that oppresses you by the enemy. But this is Noe at Walk with Yah. Please feel free to email me at Noe@walkwithyah, surprisingly enough. So, okay. I hope that does it, and I hope that helps some. Thank you much. Shalom.